I almost got sucked into the trap of thinking that in order to be successful, I needed to put in work, hard work, 60 hours plus of week of work. But I was really, really wrong about that. What I really needed to do was change my thoughts and shift them so that I could do less. In life, there's always going to be something pulling you in a direction: your parents, your spouse, your friends, work, scaling your business, hiring, marketing. And all of those things all seem so urgent and important. How do you prioritize it all when little fires keep popping up everywhere that need to be put out? I am Shanice Miller, and welcome to my podcast, Do Less. Yes, that's right, do less. It used to be cool to work 60 hours a week, but the world has gotten smarter and realized why spend more time to make the same or less money. I help small business owners build systems and processes to help them scale and find more time for themselves and their families. I'm going to provide you the best practices and all the tools and tips to scale your business. Welcome to my show. So, Nicole, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course, I'm excited to be here.
So, what was a recent time that made you realize you had a problem with your relationship with time?
Oh my gosh. I mean, how much time do you have? I mean, looking back, really, since I started my business, a common mantra in my life, especially since I had kids, but even before that, was just, there's not enough time. And how many times are you saying to yourself, if I just had more time, there's not enough time, if only there were more time? And you hear literally everybody, it's become like a cultural badge of honor to say, oh, I'm so busy. There's not enough time. There's not enough time. So we say this to ourselves so many times. So of course, we are going to live in that kind of time scarcity space. So I want to jump back just real quick because I actually had a big breakthrough with this back in January. Heather Lottinen from the Flourish Academy, she helps coach creatives and photographers. I was doing a coaching call with her, and we were talking about the scarcity of time that I always just felt like there's not enough time. And
Mhm.
as soon as I get this done, then there'll be more time. And then I can focus on this. And that never happens. So we're talking about it. And, I was frustrated one morning because I was in my office trying to get something done, and my husband needed something, or my son needed something, or just somebody needed something because, that's always the case.
And how does that
And
make you feel that someone's always needing something?
oh yeah, well then it just goes into a spiral of, see, this is why I'm never going to get anything done. My business is going to fail because I can't get things done, and people just need to let me work, and it just goes into a
Mm.
really negative bad spot. But then we were chatting, and my goal has always been to work like 20 hours a week, 25 hours a
Mm.
week. Like
Mine
I don't
too.
want to yeah, I don't want a business working 80 hours a week. I have two kids, they're middle school and high school now, so it's starting to get like as busy as when they were like babies, but a different kind of busy.
Okay.
But
What
anyway,
kind of
so
busy is that?
oh, it's just the busy of like as soon as they're home from school, it's like, all right, now we go here, and now we go there, and now you have this sports track. Like they have lives now that we need to show for them too.
And how does that feel? I mean, especially with time, like that seems like even less time you have.
Oh yeah, 100%. So it was feeling pretty crunchy and just crazy and like trapped in this cycle of never enough time. But she helped me relook at this because we were looking at like what thought could I change in my head from there's never enough time to like what can I do? And we were thinking, okay, there needs to be like a ladder belief because I can't just go to there's always enough time to get done whatever, like, whatever these really high serving
The
thoughts are. I'm like,
complete
I just don't
extreme.
believe it. Yeah. I'm like, I can't get behind that because I don't believe it. So she's like, all right, can we start with I have 5 hours a day, which is true. My youngest leaves for school at 9. My daughter gets home from school a little after 2. I'm like, we've got 5 hours a day. Yes. And then she realized, she's like, wait a minute, you want to work 20 to 25 hours a week. Like, this is what you want.
Yeah.
So that thought, just
Isn't it
adding that
funny?
on.
It's like we
Yeah.
ask for it and then we get it and we're like, "Oh, not enough hours in a day."
I
But
know.
it's like,
I
this
know.
is what you always ask for, only 5 hours per day to really work.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it actually worked out really well by putting those together. I was like, oh, wow. So now I can think like I get 5 hours a day and that's exactly what I want. And that feels so much more empowering than there's never enough time. And now I can
Mm.
look at, when I sneak into my office in the morning while everyone's still home, like, oh, it's bonus time. Or if I sneak into my office on a Saturday morning when everybody's still sleeping and nobody's really up and around yet, bonus time. Instead of me feeling like that is my main work time and getting frustrated for interruptions, it has really like shifted everything for me this year by being able just to change that one little thought.
Wow. I really love that you put that out there because so many times we think that, and I thought that the solution to more time is actually to try to like lose some sleep or, try
Right.
to like find different ways that you're like crafting more time into your schedule. But you're like, no, it's really a mentality, a mindset. And that makes so much sense because in doing less, that's exactly the shift. It's a mentality shift that, like,
Mhm.
okay, I still have the same 24 hours in a day that everyone else has, but what can I do that makes me most productive during this time frame? What's the time that I can really maximize so that I'm
Mhm.
really using these hours instead of wasting them? Because even with all of those hours in the day, if we're like cutting back on sleep and only, waking up at 4 a.m., like some people are telling you, get your day started earlier. That never
Right.
worked for me, by the way.
Yeah. No, no. I'm
Because
a
then I'm
7
just
AM
like,
kinda girl.
yeah, I'm like drowsing through the day. I'm like dragging because I woke up so early.
Uh-huh.
I'm not even
Yes.
really being productive because I'm like, oh, I should have slept a little bit more because now I'm so tired.
Right.
But so it's interesting that just that shift in the thought of those 5 hours, now I
Mhm.
have 5 hours. What are the possibilities that I can do with these 5 hours instead of thinking about the limits? I recently read this book called The Gap and the Gain, and it was really
I'm
good.
reading that right now. It's so
Yeah,
good.
it is so
Yeah.
good about just the possibilities of like in the lessons that you've learned, but like living in the gain. So your gain is, you have these 5 hours, and what can I do with this incredible 5 hours instead of,
Mhm.
oh, I don't have enough time. Where is the time going? I need more time to work on something. It's definitely a different shift in your energy and the outlook on things.
Mhm.
And especially when things pop up. Now, I know you've had something pop up recently that's a big, major life events. Those
Right.
take a big toll. You've already talked about your kids. That's a major life event. And are there any other recent major life events that's like
Oh
really
my
taken a
gosh.
toll on your time?
Yeah, this whole past quarter. So it started in April where we had well, I had 2 vacations planned. We had our like family spring break and then I was going to Portugal with my mom to my cousin's
That
wedding.
sounds
So
fun.
super fun. It's not like I'm sitting here, woe is me. I didn't get much work done in April. But I was looking forward to May where I wasn't traveling. I was going to be home for like a good 6 weeks, which is about as long as I'm ever home at a time and I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to get so much done. This is going to be
Mhm.
amazing." And then when we were in Portugal, my mom got sick and
Mhm.
turned out like we ended up coming home. Turned out she needed some surgeries and
Wow.
it's all looking good and positive now, but we weren't sure what the outcome was going to be, cancer diagnosis, all this kind of stuff. So there
Wow.
was a lot of having her here, doctors, and then getting back to, Pittsburgh where she lives, where I'm from, seeing doctors there, me flying up for the surgery, spending a week there trying to help her, coming back, just so much of that. And then in the midst of all that, I
And that sounds overwhelming in
yes, yeah,
itself.
yeah. In the midst of all that, like literally 2 weeks after we got home, like a week before her surgery, I ride horses and my horse tripped and fell while I was riding him, and then I broke my collarbone. So I have no right
Oh my
arm.
gosh.
So
You're in surgery too.
yeah, thankfully I didn't need surgery. However, yeah, I mean, I'm 3 weeks out and I can finally like lift my arm here, but there's still like limited use for it. So, I was actually
Wow.
really proud of myself. I was able to put my own bra on, put my hair up, and change my shirt yesterday. So, I was like, wow, and tie my shoes. It was a
Oh,
big day.
you know, I didn't even think about that, like, not being able to lift your shoulder is, "I can't put my bra on anymore."
Yeah.
Like, that's a complete mind shift to me. I know when my father started having his eye problem, it changed the way I was thinking because I was like, "What if I go blind
Uh-huh.
randomly?"
Yeah.
What if something like that happens to me too? So like to not be able to put your bra on through your shoulder, put your own shirts on
Yes,
yourself.
yes.
Like we take it for granted,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah.
it's like until you don't have it anymore, now you're thinking like I was thinking, I don't know if you're thinking the same thing, but like, all right, how can I get around this? How,
Yeah. Well,
something like this happened to me.
when I
What am
was
I going to do next time?
yeah, I know. When I was in Pittsburgh, my mom ended up because the surgery ended up needed to do a couple extra steps, so she was in the hospital longer than expected for recovery. So the one night I went to meet a friend of mine, and we're leaving, and I was going back to my mom's house. Nobody else was there, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to take my own shirt off. So we we thankfully it was cool enough that I had like a zip up sweatshirt, and I'm like, you need to come to the bathroom with me, and like she had to help me like get my arm out of the one side of my shirt, and then I zipped it up, so I'm driving home with my shirt like half on underneath my zip up sweatshirt. I'm like, this is just what I need to do now.
Well, you're taking it really well. I can see so many people are being like, "Oh, this is life," like once again, staying in the gain versus the gap.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I just refuse to I'm not available to sit. I mean, definitely the first couple days after I broke it, like that Monday and Tuesday was not productive and there was some wallowing. But then, I just don't allow myself to have the time to do that, especially with everything that was going on this month. It was like, well, got to figure it out. So, yeah, so we did.
Okay. So now that you realized you had this issue with
Mhm.
time and it was really just a mindset change, what are you doing and able to accomplish with just those 5 hours per day?
Yeah, well, I think this all of this happened the past couple months. It was a perfect storm of just like, you've heard the saying like first God throws a pebble, then a rock, then a boulder. Like, all right, I
Mm.
10-4, I got my boulder. Like, I get it. I need to keep allowing my team to do more things in my business. So this past month, I've been leaning on them more and, kind of letting go of the reins a little bit for a couple things that I
Letting go,
was
you're speaking my love
yeah.
language.
I was just holding on to things a little bit too much of like and it wasn't because I didn't trust them. I mean, part of it was almost like, "Oh, I don't wanna ask them to do too much." Like, this is their
Mm.
job. Like and I'm always very cognizant of like, letting them know, like, if you have too much to do that you can't fit, let me know because we can rearrange or, get in another VA to help alleviate some of the work. So, yeah, I don't know why I had this major block of like, I'm gonna bother them.
You're going to bother the people that you're
Yeah,
employing, that
exactly.
you're paying.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Like, oh, I don't wanna, like, ask them to do too many things. So, anyway.
Why do you think that is, though?
Oh, I don't know, and I think part of it is, as the person with the entrepreneur mindset that got into this because I am completely unemployable and I can never imagine, like, having someone tell me what I need to do all the time. I think I then
Mm.
project that onto others, whereas generally, like, when I do this, my employees are actually like, "Oh, awesome, great, I've got this," and then they feel ownership of it, and they actually are more vested in it and more satisfied because now they have something that they can call, more of their own.
Yeah. So how did all of that time that you had to spend, I know you said you had to lean on your employees more, but how did that impact your business?
Good. I mean, the business just kept on going without any sort of hiccup. So yeah, so it's been really good, and then it's actually freed up some more time in my schedule where there were, calls in our membership that I would always kind of MC, but then there's certain ones if I'm not actually leading the call, like if we're having a guest instructor, it's like I don't need to be on that call, so I can have
Mm.
one of our team members lead the call, introduce the instructor, like, and be there to help support everybody and then I can just show up for the ones that I'm actually leading, which right there knocks, an hour or two off my weekly schedule. And when you're only working, trying to work 20 to 25 hours a week, that's a significant amount.
Yes. Wow. That's truly amazing because it seemed like all those things, like you said, got those
Uh-huh.
a pebble
Yeah.
first and then a rock.
Yep.
It really changed your view because you were thrust into it.
Hmm.
You had to kind of like quickly get ready, but then you saw you had those foundations in place, but you just weren't falling back enough and doing less enough to let
Hmm.
your team to step up for you.
Yep.
So I love the fact that you had those systems and processes already in place
Yeah.
for if this day came, so many of us don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
have those things in place. But having that in place allowed you to really see, like, okay, I do have enough time in the day.
Mhm.
So, how are you doing your schedule now with all of this extra free time that you're finding?
Okay, well, now let's not get crazy. I don't know if there's all this extra free time. However, yeah, no, so I would love to just speak quickly on, well, 2 things. Speaking back to what we were just talking about, it has definitely made it my goal to, like, the membership that I run, the Hair of the Dog Academy for pet photographers to master their craft, grow their business. My goal for that is to continue to have my team really be completely responsible for the day-to-day running of it. So that if something did happen to me, if I needed to take like 3 months off, or, heaven forbid, a health issue happened for me that was more than just a collarbone,
Mhm.
that the business would be able to continue on for that time. So that's definitely one of my goals looking forward over the next year. But
And that's exactly why I started my business too in the very beginning
yeah,
was, if I had to take off that extra time, if I had to be hospitalized, God
right.
forbid, but, what would I be able to do? How could I do it? And how could I survive without having an active income, without me having to actively be there and do things for an extended period of time?
Mhm.
So that's definitely a big mindset shift
Yep.
right there.
Yeah, and then on the more fun side, maybe I just wanna, like, go off and, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
house sit donkeys in the south of
Vacation.
France for 2 months and
House
be
with
off the
donkeys.
yeah, be off the grid.
You're such a pet girl.
I am, I am. I have an issue. But anyway, and then as far as my day-to-day, so what I used to do to manage my schedule was I would, obviously have my calls at the beginning of the week. Sunday night, I've always, like, looked at my schedule for the upcoming week and, like, slotted down what my calls were. I've been using a software called Tweak.so,
Mm.
Tweak or EEK. I'm not sure. I forget. But Tweak.so, it's free. It's like $30 a year to add on a couple little, like, color coding, a couple little bonus things. But it's awesome. And I would just take my calendar, because my calendar gets so busy with my husband's calendars in there, the kids' school calendar.
Mm.
And I know I can turn it on and off, but it's just like, it's too much clutter, like, just too much visual stimulation looking at that. So Tweak is like completely blank. And then I just write down, like, here's my calls. And then I would have a list of what I wanted to do that week. And I would just kind of go through that list and kind of check it off and try to get it done. And then inevitably every week I would choose way too many things that could possibly get done during the week. And then that would cause me, as I'm going through, you'd be subjected to just kind of picking off what I wanted to work on right now. Sometimes things that, like, oh, I
Mm.
have to get done because the deadline's tomorrow or this afternoon. But generally, I would end up choosing things I wanted to do, and then things that I really should do didn't get done, and then they were pushed to when there was, like, a hard deadline, which is not really a
Yeah,
good way to be doing that, because what if something came up that day and, then I'm behind the 8 ball.
and the things that you have to do anyway, those are very
Mhm.
important to begin with,
Right.
so it's like but it's not necessarily like the things I push off, they aren't my
Yeah,
strengths because
exactly.
I'm just like, "Oh, this is gonna take
Uh-huh,
forever.
maybe I need to look
Oh, I
up
have
all
to."
these things, or I'm not sure exactly
Yes.
how to do this.
"I don't
100%.
know how to word this
Yep.
correctly. What if I say the wrong things?"
Yep, so I'll just
So
forget it. I'll just do this later.
yeah.
So yeah, so then I kind of switched up how I did this a little bit, in that I am, well, number 1, the other thing I realized during this past month is, because I ended up clearing my schedule quite a bit for a week or 2 while I was helping my mom. And I realized I really, really like having, like, from 9 to 11 in the morning with nothing scheduled. So I can, like, have 2 hours of, like, deep work, and then do things like this and host my calls and do that kind of stuff in the afternoon when it's a little bit easier and I don't need to do, like, that really deep brain work of, like, creating or copywriting or, like, just developing all that kind of stuff. So that was one
I
lesson.
learned
Yeah.
I learned as well that I can't take calls too early.
Yeah.
So my calls don't start until 10 AM,
Uh-huh.
and I can't take calls too late either.
Yes.
So, like, around 2 PM is, like, my last call or appointment time that I'll put on my calendar because I just realized, like, okay, before that time and after that time, I'm dreading the call, so
Uh-huh.
I'm showing up with really low energy,
Yep.
and I'm not at my best with, whether it's sales calls or even a client call. It's
Mhm.
like I wanna show up and be, like, ready and excited and have the high
Yep.
energy, and I'm like, earlier than 10, and after 3,
Yeah.
I'm just not there anymore.
Yeah, no, I hear you for sure. Absolutely. So yeah, so then how I changed it recently, I've been doing it for about a past month or so, is I would still at the beginning of the week put on the things that I've already scheduled. And then I would figure out what needs to happen that week. So my weekly priorities. And then I would actually schedule those things into my calendar so that
Mhm.
like there's no decisions to be made. Tuesday morning, I sit down, I'm like, oh, today's the day I'm working on this project. Here we go. So it just takes a lot of that, those decision making in the morning and that temptation to pick and choose what I feel like doing. And it's really been a game changer. So between that and then looking forward in my schedule of trying to protect that morning time a little bit better has been really, really good. And like, even if it's 4 days a week, so like maybe one day a week I'll take calls there, but like at least 3 or 4 days a week that it is like nothing in the morning so I can do the deep work. It's been awesome.
I think that's really genius because when it is blocked off, and like I've noticed this as well, if I'm like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm just doing this one activity,
Mhm.
then it's I'm completely locked in. I am focused. I am churning it out
Yep.
really quickly. Whereas, like, if I just say, oh, today I have to do this, it's just like, oh, I can get to it in an hour,
Yep.
or maybe I can get to it like
Exactly.
after lunch.
Yep. 100%.
I like that. So you are time blocking,
Mhm.
and are you also like doing certain things on certain days? Because I know
Mm.
I only take calls on certain days as well, so that it's like, okay, I'm getting ready and stuff
Yeah,
like
I
that.
try to. So I try to have Tuesday, Thursday kind of be my bigger call days. Well, Thursday afternoon because Thursday morning I usually ride. But Tuesday is my like big call day where it's just like, okay, I know there's one day that I just can schedule a whole bunch of stuff and I know I'm not going to get a lot of deep work done and that's fine because that's the day
Mhm.
for that. And then like Wednesday afternoon and I try to keep Monday and Friday really light too.
Okay, so what are some examples of this deep work that you keep
Oh
talking
my gosh.
about?
So like many entrepreneurs out there that have probably 8,000 projects that they want to work on in their business. I mean,
Your brain's
maybe
all over the place?
9,000. Yeah, so it is like this morning actually I was setting up figuring out how we want to use ManyChat for our Instagram
Mm.
so that I can do a little reel and then just say comment the podcast episode number and can send it over and I've been meaning to do this for months. And I'm like, I just need to sit down and do it. And lo and behold, it took like an hour. Was really not that
Yes.
complicated.
ManyChat has allowed me to do so much less as well,
Uh-huh,
so
yeah.
I love
Yes. Yeah.
ManyChat.
And it's like
Just gonna put that in
I
there.
have this social media account that social media has never been like my strong point in marketing. And so we have this account and I'm just like, I need to like utilize this better. So we're excited for that. So it'll be that, or also in the process of creating a whole bunch of new content for the academy for like the craft side of it, of learning pet photography. So, sitting down and working on that because that truly, I need to sit down for at least an hour at a time to kind of get in that mindset and like really make some progress there. So stuff like that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your tips and
Oh
tricks
my gosh,
and
of
definitely
course.
being open. Yes, and being open about exactly how life happens
Yeah.
and how that impacts the work schedule and, just in your mind too, because those are all things that we come into and we don't have control of, but it comes at you fast.
It sure does.
So, Nicole, if someone wants to learn more about you and what you do, how to follow you, where can they go?
Sure. Well, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Nicole Begley Official. It's NicoleBegley official. And then my website is hairofthedogacademy.com.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So, this has been an amazing episode of Do Less with me, Shanice Miller. Share this episode with anyone who needs this today. Leave a 5-star rating and review. And remember, if you're an entrepreneur and you need to do less in your business, click the link in the description to work with me.